We're back.
There we go.
Yes, there it is.
Daniel's doing the intro from now on. Okay?
That's a collective effort.
I was trying to think of something to say. I had a joke in mind that I thought of last night, but it just slipped away from me.
Wait, so you don't remember your joke?
No, I don't.
That's quite upsetting.
It is. You know what is not upsetting?
Is it something about Jeff Merrick? Because I have been waiting 5 days or 4.
Patience, young Padawan. We will get there. We will get to this Jeff Merrick snippet. But anyway, for those of you who are listening, welcome to On One Podcast. That's what you're listening to. I'm Adam, joined as always by Daniel.
And Alex. Yep, I'm still here. Haven't left.
Daniel, say something.
I thought you were saying both our names. So you're like, and Daniel, and then there's a pause. They're like, wait, he's going to say Alex?
Nope.
Wow, what a great start to the show.
I'll say my own
God.
name.
Let's go over that again. I'm here with, as always, Alex.
Yep. Still
and
here.
The other one.
Daniel.
Yes.
Daniel, how's your Lego Batmobile going, buddy?
Great, man.
Yeah?
We're all fun guys.
Still in the box.
Made any headway with Star Wars Clone Wars, too?
Yeah, like, what I've gained, or not the episodes, but the motivation.
Oh, he's trying to
continue. Go back and watch it. Yes.
I'm rarely lost for words, but I am right now. So I guess we can get going here, and I think first I'm going to share my screen with you guys on Skype. Hey, let's say you're listening to this podcast on iTunes and that. Why not switch over to the YouTube channel, listen to it there. In fact, listen to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, VoiceEd, wherever you're listening to it, and then go watch the video as well. So it's a shame because I can't seem to figure out how to screen share. While I'm figuring this out, guys,
technical difficulties.
How are you?
Mm-hmm.
Good. We have so much. Depending on what order you're listening to the episodes that come out today, this is episode 1 of 2.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to get to, and it is going to be an action-packed episode.
If you want maybe some previews here of what's going to be going on, the first episode we're going to be talking a bit about, so the Akim Aliu article from the Players Tribune.
No, we're going to talk about Jeff Merrick first. Let's do this.
You know what, Alex?
No.
I appreciate that you want to get to it, but we got to think of the listeners for a second. We got to give
I'm thinking of the listeners. I'm thinking of they want to hear what Jeff Merrick.
I believe in the Power Hour outline. We have to go by the
thank you,
by what's written there. Yes.
Thank you for backing me up.
Can I don't know if you guys can see my face because I'm screen sharing.
No.
But for a second, I just had my hands and my face together because I'm going insane.
Yeah.
So if I can finish this, we can get to Jeff Merrick.
We will.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, so today's episode, our first one, we're going to be talking about Jeff Merrick for a minute because I know Alex is going to get upset about me about this. Then we're going to look at the Akim Aliu article that was on the Players Tribune, a heartbreaking read. Daniel wants to talk to us about some AHL stuff, which I was shocked at because Daniel never adds stuff to the doc. He's more go with the flow. So I'm excited for this. And then the main event of today's episode is, you may have heard that the NHLPA voted on something pretty big to do with the 2014 playoff format. And we're going to talk about that. Just because then there's a lot to unpack there. The first real bit of news we've had in a while. So, guys, Jeff Merrick, right? You see my screen right now,
Is he coming on the podcast? Is that what it is?
No. I wish. Nothing would make me happier than having Jeff Merrick on this podcast. Okay. Anyway, so here's a picture of Jeff Merrick, right?
Okay.
Here's a picture of Bobby Flay.
What?
Jeff Merrick, Bobby Flay.
What?
Jeff Merrick.
What?
It looks like Jeff Merrick in 10 years will look like Bobby Flay.
No, this is what you made me wait 5 days for.
So I don't.
This is what you made. This is the worst thing you could have ever done.
I was watching the Food Network, and it was this stupid barbecue show, right? And Bobby Flay is on there, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? He looks just like Jeff Merrick.
No,
if you check out the YouTube portion of this, here's a picture of Jeff Merrick. There's Bobby Flay.
No,
Jeff
he
Merrick.
doesn't.
He does.
No, he doesn't.
Look at that. That's Jeff Merrick in a few
No.
years.
No.
Jeff Merrick. Oh, wow, that's a vintage picture of Jeff Merrick. Look at that
Wow.
beard.
The spiked hair.
I'm
That's
so
not a good-
disappointed.
Uh,
You know what? Let's just move
It's,
on. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
I just thought
That was
we'd
nice.
start with that. But we'll turn it on to a bit more of a serious note. I'm assuming all three of us have read the Akim Aliu article on the Players Tribune.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess to begin with that, first of all,
Madam, you're screaming.
how
You're screaming.
did reading... I know, I'm going to fix it in a second. How did it make you guys feel reading that article? I'll start with you, Daniel.
Yeah, like I think when all that stuff came out, with like Bill Peters back in the fall, that was a big time too for like that idea of like, okay, where are we shifting with hockey's culture? And what I kind of felt that when an article like this came out, it was kind of like an update to, this is something that you just kind of just don't kind of brush under the rug. Kind of, it's an ongoing thing. Like I remember speaking with Parminder Singh. So he was one of the co-creators of Hockey Night in Canada in Punjabi.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of talked about like he didn't like the Brad Trevling comments on, this is something that, we kind of dealt with, the Bill Peters thing. Now let's go back to hockey. In a way, it's like, no, this is an ongoing thing for hockey's culture. And man, to read that was really heartbreaking. I knew a lot of the details already, but two things that kind of stuck out to me were he gave us an update with the whole Keandre Miller thing.
Yeah.
I really appreciate Akim for adding that. And one thing too was, because I know there was another piece like this before on Sportsnet a few years back about the whole OHL situation on the Spitfires, and he named Steve Downey for like the first time, I believe, in this piece of like the captain that bullied him back in Windsor.
It was definitely, I don't know about you guys, but Alex, to me, the part that, there was a lot of, real tearjerking stuff in that article, but the first thing that really got me was when he talked about how he didn't want to partake in the hazing of, taking off his clothes and going with all the other rookies into the bathroom, and he talks about how after that, he was in practice and all of a sudden somebody taps him on his back and he says Steve Downey with his, carbon fiber stick just cross-checks him, and the way he described losing the teeth, the blood flowing all over him. I don't know about you, but that was, I think, when you get a sense from that line alone of just what kind of article this is going to be.
Yeah, there's a lot of... I would say there's a lot to unpack in that one article, because it doesn't seem like, for a lot of what was going on, it seemed like, yes, it seemed like a race issue, but I think there's also a hockey culture issue.
Yes.
Right? So there's there's the hazing incident, which, we haven't heard much about other than this recently. I could be completely wrong, but that is working. It's kind of itself out of hockey, but the whole racism seems to be still in hockey. The reason for that, I think it's a bigger issue than hockey. I think it really is society as a whole, because it's still an issue in society. And I don't think you can take it out of hockey until you deal with it in society. Because who are the people within, like, yes, there's the players, but there's also the fans, right? Like, you look at the Keandre Miller situation, right? That was fan-related. How are you going to say, we're going to say we can only have these people be fans of hockey? You can say that, but it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. It's going to be really tough to say, hey, you can't be a fan of this team. You know what I mean? Like, how do you enforce something like that? Mm-hmm. I think the issues, for sure, there's a lot of issues, and I think this year it's just been, this is what's wrong with hockey culture. And we can't tackle it in hockey. I think there's things that can be done. Why? And they talked about it the last episode of Steve Dangle podcast. Why is it that we don't hear from the superstars? Why is it that when that post was up, it was just I think I saw one. I saw two. I saw Stephen Johns from Dallas say something, and I saw Robin Leonard say something.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and Ryan Miller.
Or retweet it. And who?
Ryan Miller.
And Ryan. Sorry, I didn't see the Ryan Miller one. Why isn't it that we see the people that have the biggest impact on the game today? Why don't we ever hear anything from Crosby? Why don't we ever hear anything from McDavid? I'm using those two as the biggest examples. And in my opinion, sorry, just 1 second.
No worries.
In my opinion, I think it has everything to do with how hockey players are, quote unquote, portrayed. They have to have no personality. They're not allowed to speak out. Or it's not that they're not allowed. They choose not to speak out because they don't want the backlash. But if this was basketball, if this was football, if this was baseball, if this was soccer, that wouldn't even be a question.
Yeah.
The biggest names would be out there talking about this, and no one's talking.
I mean, even Aliu makes a point of talking about, like, it's almost like he wasn't surprised that the big names aren't saying anything because, and I don't want to use the term brainwash, but it's almost like in hockey culture, you don't draw attention to yourself. And I think part of that is not saying up and saying anything. I mean, we talk about Stephen Johns, Robin Leonard. And, I mean, it's heartbreaking to see a guy like Evander Kane consistently be the only kind of star player to, talk about this stuff, and no one else hits.
Just to be clear, like, I'm talking about white star players, right? Like, we've heard, like, PK was on the Ray and Dregs podcast, and they were talking about it too, just what was going on, and PK had a different perspective on it, in a way that, instead, like, yes, all these bad things happen, but, it's certain people. And PK's thing was those are the people I know not to interact with. Those are the people I'm not going to, I don't want to be involved with. So he has a different perspective. He's had his own incidents throughout his career. I can imagine Adam would know more about it, more in detail about it than I would, but I can guarantee you he's had his own incidents.
Oh yeah, PK is times Montreal. There have been some things yelled at him when he's been in the penalty box or something. I mean, and then you remember stuff like Devontae Smith-Pelly and somebody yelling basketball at him, and the Akim Aliu stuff. I also remember talking about, like, kind of the crap the players get. In Aliu's article, how he puts up all the tweets of some of the racial slurs he was getting was, damn, it was something to read. Me and Alex can only talk about this so much as white dudes. So Daniel, I'd really like to get your perspective because you are a special kind of hockey fan. Like, you fell in, like, I think we dedicated the whole episode to talking about the Ducks, and you have really fallen in love with the league, and really the Cinderella story. So, and as yourself being, a visible minority, I want to know how this whole saga with Aliu and this article made you feel.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting thing because I think when you grow up, you always had those ads where it's like hockey is for everyone, and those were like kind of weird ads. They'd have like Richard Park on it, who's like Korean. They had like Dustin Byfuglien, I believe, on like a few of them when he was in Atlanta, and it's definitely something that I could probably like growing up. Like, I didn't get, like, it wasn't really like the game itself was there for me, but I was never really something in, like, I guess culturally saying like you're gonna play the sport in a way. It was kind of a thing where as you grow up and you kind of realize you want to, pursue sports journalism. It is something definitely where people kind of get caught off guard if you want to talk about it. Like they're more into like, oh, why aren't you talking about basketball all the time? Or like for me personally, like I've been someone that hasn't really kind of like seen this ugly side of it, but but I know that it is definitely there.
Yeah.
And like growing up, especially, like at first I didn't understand why I liked I remember like I liked that whole like team identity thing, but like growing up now, it just that realization like you need that personality and that individualism in sports to kind of like go like, yeah, we have these guys that speak out, or we're more open to the diversity, and that's two things that I still love hockey, but something I kind of find with the NBA right now is that even with, like, the coaches and everything, like, they have female coaches, or like along the lines with everything. It's like there's been like Asian general managers.
Right.
There's been like a lot of multiculturalism within it that it's still a work in progress, but it's something that it could see like we're going in this way.
Yeah.
I don't even. Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just saying, it seems like, I can only talk about it from a Leafs perspective because I know for a fact that, Seattle brings in a couple of women as well. I know Alex Mandrycky, and I can't remember the other, what her name is. Now it's not coming to me. But, like, there's teams who are kind of taking that small step forward. Leafs bring in Haley Wickenheiser, and I think they have a couple other on staff as well. But it seems like prominent positions, they're still that kind of step behind than other leagues. Like, you look at the NFL, they have the Rooney Rule, and that's like when you are hiring a coach or a general manager, you have to interview a minority.
Mm-hmm. Like, even I'm thinking about staff in the NHL, and I mean, man, it took how long just to get outside of, CHL coaches to NCAA coaches, guys like David Quinn, Jim Montgomery. We don't even have European general managers beside Jarmo Kekalainen.
Yeah.
I can't remember a black coach in this league. Again, we're just starting to see female like scouts and that again in Seattle and that. Something I really want to ask you guys about is Aliu kind of talked about that, you see the league trying to expand into China, but him talking about growing the game at home. And that I can only think of a few black NHL players. So Monty Smith-Pelly, Wayne Simmons, PK Subban. It's not a lot. It shows that like you really are. It's almost like you're overextending yourself here. Because why are you trying to expand to the other side of the ocean when you're not even growing the game? It's in your home base in Canada, U.S.
I kind of feel that too. Like, I think I've talked. I did it in a joking way, but like I really do follow these guys because growing up, that whole Filipino thing with basketball. For me, like seeing like Matt Dumba being half Filipino or Nick Robertson being half Filipino, and his brother, that's like those have been like big things for me. But it's also an indication too of just like I guess you said as well, like that division of like these set minorities of players.
Mm-hmm. Alex.
Sorry, what was your question?
Just the thought, looking at how the league are, looking at expanding to China, across the seas, all this time stuff, South Korea, when they're not even being able to kind of grow the game at home, and there aren't a lot of.
Yeah, I think the first thing, like we were talking about literally a couple minutes ago about having minorities within. Prominent positions within the league, whether that be at the actual NHL or on teams. I think to start that, you get more minorities in the game. You get them playing in the game. So, like, in hockey, this is just a hockey thing. A lot of people who are in prominent positions in hockey have played hockey in the past. At some type of professional level, whether that be junior, college, AHL, NHL, ECHL, whatever that may be, some type of professional hockey, they end up working in hockey. Most of the guys end up working in hockey in some way. So get them into the game. And there's more of a chance. That's a start, right, to get at least there's the base to say, hey, we have all these guys who want to be coaches, who want to be in management, who want to be executives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's at least your base right there.
Mm-hmm. I did have one more thing I wanted to close off with, but it slipped through my mind. So, do you guys have anything else to say on the Akim Aliu front? This amazing article, any stuff like that?
Yeah, no,
or
I don't.
How we move on? Okay.
For me, I think it's Brian Burke mentioned this, but this was like way back in the fall, a kind of thing where it's that idea that no matter what level you go into when it comes to hockey, and like Akim Aliu kind of mentioned it, where it's like Steve Downey would say these things to him in front of like coaches and management, kind of thing. Yet these guys like still find a position somewhere else once this whole thing boils over. It's like that old boys club, like whatever level of hockey you go to, it's always like that. It's just like a shuffling of chairs. Like the pools, the pool is so small at every position.
Yeah, it is. It
That's
shows
the
how
issue
small
in hockey. I think that is by far. I mean, for me, there's two big issues in hockey. Like outside of minority. Dealing with racism and stuff like that. Within hockey itself, the players have no personality. Most of them have no personality. And the other one is that there's literally a group of men who just rotate in. And we talked about it. We had a meeting yesterday. There was something about Peter Chiarelli going to Arizona and the league wanting him to go to Arizona. Sorry, that's not how a league works. That's not how a league works. It's great that, like, if the league wants him to be there, sure, they can have that thought. But to push to sign him, I don't think that's how it's supposed to be run.
No, it's just that carousel of this guy gets fired, he'll go over there. I mean, like Michel Therrien and Alain Vigneault all ended up back in Philly after they lost their jobs in Montreal, New York, respectively.
Yeah, but
Dave Haxtell,
Alain
ends up in.
Vigneault is a little bit different.
It still shows that, like, instead of doing these outside hires, I mean, David Quinn in New York was about like, NCAA
that was
coach.
Interesting, yeah. No, if you're a good coach, get hired. But someone like Peter Chiarelli, who, he won a cup in Boston and then murdered Tyler, what the hell was the Tyler Seguin trade? Then goes to Edmonton, gets Connor McDavid, and literally makes the playoffs once with the best player in the world.
Nathan McKinnon's in Colorado.
No.
All right.
Can I tell you something funny? Sorry, before we move on.
Yeah. There you go.
Funny you say about Peter Chiarelli thing, but the one thing that really did make me laugh was John Ferguson Jr., the guy we all knew him when he was general manager of the Leafs, trading True Karask for Andrew Raycroft. Still found a job, and it's funny. He's the current executive director of player personnel for the Boston Bruins.
Of course he is.
Man, my favorite Steve Dangle clip of all time was after last year's Game 7 Leafs Bruins elimination video. And he's like, you know how frustrating it is to see Tuukka Rask make a great save. They go to Andrew Raycroft in the studio, and then they cut in the Bruins box, and John Ferguson Jr. is celebrating, and he's just so mad, man. Yeah. It is a small world, and it is all that type of fun stuff. Daniel, though, you wanted to talk about you wanted to talk to us about some AHL stuff. What's going on?
Yes. So Steve Annis, he was a bit of like not a miracle story. This guy was playing competitive hockey everywhere he went, but it's a guy that he played for, I'm going to probably get this name wrong, Quinnipiac University in Connecticut.
Yeah, Quinnipiac.
Yeah,
I think, I don't know.
Yeah. It's a guy that, he kind of didn't really, he's 26, but is the kind of guy that, he was kind of on the cusp of kind of making it for the Wild. He has 70 points in 63 games for the Iowa Wild in the AHL. He's the leading scorer in the league, and he spoke with the Hockey News on May 18th about, it's kind of unfortunate that, this was going to be like a milestone season for the Iowa Wild. They were second in the league. They were going to go for the championship. And, this was probably going to be something that he kind of felt that would help propel him to find an NHL.
Hello, Daniel? You still there?
I thought I cut out.
Oh, no, I think we've lost Daniel.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I guess while we figure out what's wrong with Daniel, I'll just give my little piece on
Yeah.
this guy. It seems, he's played 4 years with Iowa, putting up 28 points, then 61 points, then last year put up 38 points, and now he's at 70 points. So I don't know necessarily what to think. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he finds a spot on Minnesota next year. Just because who the hell knows what Minnesota is. Like, they are bringing in young guys, but it just seems like that's a potential bottom guy depth piece to have on your team. Probably re-signed with the team. Or even if he doesn't re-sign with the team, I wouldn't be surprised if a team picks him up. Like, I'm just throwing this team out there, like a team with lots of money. Like, there's 2 teams that we both know of who have lots of money and just throw money at AHL players. And I know the Leafs do it for a fact.
Yes. Yeah, Montreal do love doing that. I mean, yeah, he could, even if he's not an NHLer, he can easily be a fantastic piece to help, maybe like a player coach, right? You never know, like Rich Bloom type of thing.
Yeah.
God, I feel Daniel has left the call, so he
said
figure it out.
He said his internet cut out, so hopefully he'll be back.
Hey, while we're talking about the AHL stuff, it's nice to know that it looks like this season has very much been a reminder that the AHL is not a death sentence for players. I mean, Kyle Yamamoto is a big player that Jeff Merrick always brings up as an example of that.
Right.
It's still a developmental league.
Yeah, that's kind of, well, it is a developmental league, right? Like, you think about all the players that are there, and I think it really, I'm not a big fan of the CHL rule of if you get drafted and were a player in the CHL when you were drafted and then you have to go back to the CHL.
Yeah, depending on
you look at certain players, like I'm going to use a Leaf example here. You can probably give a Montreal example too. You look at Nick Robertson, who was pretty much goal per game this year. You're telling me if he doesn't make the Leafs out of camp, he has to go back to the CHL?
Yeah.
I don't see. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, you talk about Nick Robertson. That's a great example of a player that didn't really need to go back to the OHL. Nick Suzuki, I think, is another good example for Montreal. I think he put up about 190 points in his last 2 seasons with the Guelph Storm / I can't remember his other team he played for in the OHL. God dang it. But it's basically what I'm trying to say is Nick Suzuki was very clearly a player who didn't need to go back for a second. It was with the Owen Sound Attack, sorry. He really didn't need to go back for another season in the OHL. I mean, look at how good he was as a rookie and the potential he showed. I think it would have helped him, spend some time in Laval with Yoel Bouchard. So
yeah. So,
but Daniel, sorry.
I searched up. I was looking for Nick Suzuki, and I searched up Nick Zucchini.
Zucchini. And what comes up when you say Nick Zucchini?
Nothing. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
We had some difficulties, but Daniel, you're now back, and once again, tell me about Salmon Ass and what you love about this story so much.
Oh, what I love about this guy is he didn't really go to that really well-known American university. I'm sure in Connecticut it's well-known. But it's a guy he's already 26. But the fact is that, he came into the AHL, the Wild took a risk on him. It's not he kind of dominated, I think, here and there. I think I talked about before, he has the potential to be a top 9 guy, right now, but his coach is saying that he's adjusting to that fourth line role. He could be a type of grinder that could come into the lineup now for Minnesota.
Yeah.
And he was the kind of guy that he talked about how he was really disappointed that this momentum that this team had going in, it kind of just ended there. And yeah, we talked about where 5'8", 160-pound guy reminds us of Tyler Ennis, who we've talked about a lot.
And he's a
on
Kyle
this podcast.
Dubas guy. He's a Kyle Dubas
Yeah,
guy.
Kyle.
That's it. Right
So yeah, and like that.
Yeah, sorry, go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and like again, like I said, like soft spot for those NCAA guys that they don't get drafted or they're a low pick and they still make it.
The only thing that, and it's not a concern. It's just a little off-putting for me is that he comes into the AHL, puts up 28 points, then his second year in the AHL puts up 61 points, right? Pretty good point total. Then the year after 38 points, and then this year he puts up 70 points. Yeah. That's the only thing that concerns me, but that's is he consistent or not? Whatever team signs him, it's not like he's being signed to a multi-million-dollar deal, right? So it really is a low risk type contract, whether that be with the Wild or if that's with another team.
When you were gone, Daniel, it's funny you bring up that Sam and Ask could probably be fourth line, top line, because what the breath that me and Alex were talking about was maybe even like a team like a Montreal, Toronto, a rich team could bring him in to be a very expensive, almost maybe even a player coach type thing, if he wasn't maybe ready for the NHL. So, but it's interesting you talk about him as an NHLer. But regardless, seeing probably what he's turned into as a player, it makes me want to ask you, Daniel, what do you think of looking at the AHL and you look at a player like Kyler Yamamoto is a player that Jeff Merrick loves talking about in relation to reminding people that the AHL is still a developmental league. And it seems like Sam Anas is another great example of that.
Personally, I like the emphasis on the AHL because what I kind of see in other leagues are, I'll use the one extreme is baseball, where even if you're a top draft choice, sometimes they won't see you for 3 or 4 years. That's I guess one extreme, but I like that there's that development aspect to it. But then you see sometimes with football or basketball, where basketball's kind of changing too, where they have more emphasis on the G League, where you see a guy that doesn't really come in right away and goes, okay, yeah, go and play in the major, go and play in the pro league now. It's no, let's kind of slow things down and see how we could integrate this guy fully into the franchise. And I think that's something that has always been there in the NHL, but I think fans kind of got used to the fact that guys kind of just step in and dominate, but that's not always the case. You look back on even really high picks and they still needed time to kind of figure things out. I remember, I think one example, I don't know why it keeps coming to me, but it's Joe Thornton. I think he had 20 points in his first season or less.
Right. Well, you can even look at this year. Adam, you're muted. You can even look at this year and two players right off the bat, Jack Hughes, Capo Caco, coming in. They didn't really have necessarily the strongest of seasons. And even the year before, you look at Nolan Patrick and Nico Hischier, and they're both good. We haven't seen much of Nolan Patrick, but Nico Hischier is a great player, right? Just earlier this season, signed a contract extension, I think 7 years, 7.5. Right? So, I think you look at certain players, there was years in a row where players stepped into the NHL and did spectacular. You look at 2016, Matthews and Laine come in and perform. The year before that, McDavid and Eichel come in and perform. Right? So I think there was just this stretch, and only 2 years, but stretch where the guys would come in first year. Matthews put up 40 goals. Laine just seemed like an absolute dominant goal scorer. the year before that. McDavid, yeah, he got injured, but when he was playing, looked like an absolute beast, and so did Eichel, right? So I think that's one thing. What about?
I think.
Sorry, go. No.
Oh, sorry. It just. Sorry. Just one thing. I just kind of. I just think about is So one thing I just something that's came to me now is the last time a first overall pick was sent down was Eric Johnson in 2006.
Right.
Do you think it's something that the NHL will never do, where you'll see like those top guys kind of go back to the junior team or go to the AHL beforehand?
I don't think so. I think it's frowned upon. I think the right thing to do this year would have been to send Jack Hughes to the AHL. They could have sent him to the AHL, right? Because he was USHL.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think that would have been the right move. Even sending Capo Caco down there for a month, 2 months, just to develop. Right? And that's what it's there for. It's a developmental league.
Yeah, I remember that happened with Nino Niederreiter, I believe. He didn't want to kept going back and forth to Bridgeport, and then the Islanders still kept him on the team, even though like they played him on like the fourth line, and he had like 1 goal in 55 games.
Wait.
The Islanders.
I didn't even know he was an Islander.
Yeah, fifth overall, 2010 by the Islanders.
I completely forgot about that.
Man, the Islanders and developmental issues, that goes together like strawberry and jam. Wait, no, that didn't make sense because strawberry jam's a thing.
Yeah.
Like a nice bit of ice cream on a fudge brownie at the keg. That was equally as bad. But anyway, we'll move on there. I did not think we would get that deep a discussion about Sam and Ass. I will not lie. The 70-point player. Good for him, though. Especially when we have, the biggest news of the quarantine to talk about. I'll read you guys a statement here. Pretty big deal. This is from the NHLPA and their statement on return to play format. Quote, the executive board of the NHLPA has authorized further negotiations with the NHL on a 24-team return to play format to determine the winner of the 2020 Stanley Cup. Period. Several details remain to be negotiated, and an agreement on the format would still be subject to the parties reaching agreement on all issues relevant to resuming play. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, is we have a lot to figure out. Basically, because of a vote of 29-2, the NHLPA, the NHL Players Association, have agreed to a 24-team playoff format. And boys, it only took a pandemic, the season shutting down, a 24-team playoff format in which this team is still the last to make it in, even though Buffalo should probably have it. For the first time since 2017, the Habs are back in the playoffs, baby. How do we feel? First initial reactions, it is official. 24 teams.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's 24 teams. I don't know if this bracket is confirmed, though. I think there's still a bunch of things they have to get in line.
They still, nothing has been confirmed when it comes to the top 4 teams in each division, and it comes to seeding there. I think what we do know for sure, it will probably be a bracketed system, no reseeding, which people were not happy about.
Yeah, so my initial reaction is thank God, because hockey is one step closer to coming back. That's my initial reaction. Yes. Daniel?
Okay, it's one funny thing before I make this more serious statement, but the Ducks don't even make it in this format. It's so funny.
I guess before we start breaking this down, let's just look at the teams who are not going to make the playoffs here, and it's actually I don't want to laugh, but I kind of want to. So first of all, the Buffalo Sabres don't make it, which is pretty. I'm sorry, Will Christopoulos. The Sens are not going to make it, which is, I think they're actually okay with that, especially with they're probably definitely going to get a good lottery.
They don't feel bad.
The Detroit Red Wings, who swept the Habs in their season series. God dang it. The New Jersey Devils will not make the playoffs, even though once they, fired their coach and figured out which goalie to play, were pretty decent. Every team in the Central Division will make it, and in the Pacific, the Anaheim Ducks, the LA Kings, not the Anaheim Kings, and the San Jose Sharks, all three Californian teams, will miss the playoffs, guys. So I know we know that the format is not official, but what will most likely be possible is excluding the top 4 teams in each conference, which would be the Bruins, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Washington Capitals, and the Philadelphia Flyers in the East. And in the West, it's the St. Louis Blues, the Colorado Avalanche, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Dallas Stars. So if we look at each individual kind of series here, which technically is just a play-in for the playoffs, we would have Leafs, Blue Jackets, Pittsburgh, Montreal, Islanders, Panthers, which no one is going to watch, Hurricanes, Rangers, which I think is the series everyone will watch, Winnipeg, Calgary, which Sportsnet are going to make sure you all watch, the Oilers and Blackhawks, the Canucks and the Wild, and the most disappointing series of the first round, the Predators versus the Arizona Coyotes. Guys, wow. I love how insane this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is actual chaos. It is actual chaos. So my issue, I think my first issue is the reseeding.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, let's use the first seed and the fourth seed. So Montreal, Toronto and Columbus play, and whoever wins plays the first seed. So let's say Toronto wins. So it's Boston. Using what we have now, it's Boston versus Toronto again. Great. Then Pittsburgh and Montreal will play, and they'll play the fourth seed, who is Pittsburgh. Who is Philadelphia. Sorry. If Montreal wins, the fourth seed plays the 12th seed, but the first seed plays the 8th seed.
Yes.
That makes zero sense to me. That's not how it works.
What was Pete Blackburn's tweet that even if the Leafs can get past an opponent in the playoffs, they would still technically play the Bruins in the first round?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which was pretty funny.
Oh, funny. So funny.
Yeah. So I guess, first of all, did you guys see Mike Jackster's tweet?
Which one?
Oh, how he just kind of... how it was Shea Weber saying, like, obviously we're excited to play, and Mike was just saying, like, oh, don't even start.
Yeah.
It's hilarious that every video I've seen about talking about this, whoever's been putting it out has purposely put the Habs in the thumbnail, because there's just been so much noise around Carey Price, and I don't know why.
Well, because he's the guy. If you look at all the teams that are in the play-in round, there is one man who can absolutely turn it on, be on fire, that comes out of nowhere based on this season. And that is Carey Price.
I mean, there was also some concern about Patrick Kane, because he is arguably one of the best players not arguably, he's one of the best players in the world. Did you guys see that? So apparently there were reports that Chris Letang and the Penguins were voting no.
Yeah, and then they voted yes.
Yeah, so and Elliot Friedman's the exact tweet from Letang refutes reports that Pittsburgh voted no. So I'm sorry, my phone is going off. That is very, very unprofessional. My apologies.
Unbelievable.
I'm so sorry. But I get, like, if people are going to be upset about, the possible... And I know reseeding... We'll go to the reseeding first. I would think there's still room to figure that out. Because as they have said, and I think Pierre LeBrun himself actually said that, quote, aside from the bracketing versus reseeding decision, another open issue has to do with the stuff like best of 7, best of 5.
Yeah.
So I think the ability for reseeding is still there. And it does not make sense at all to have a possibility. Well, first of all, they shouldn't have to like figure out which one of those top 4 teams are what seed. It should simply be the Bruins are number 1. They had 100 points. No one else did.
Yeah.
And it's very NHL, the fact that they would somehow still have Leafs Bruins. But it does.
NHL. Yeah.
It's not fair.
Oh,
it's not.
You know what my thought process is on them playing a round robin system to determine the seeding is my guess is those 8 teams, 4 in the East, 4 in the West, were concerned about, the other teams getting to play a series, whether that be best of 3, whether that be best of 5 or best of 7. That's 7 more games. That's 3, 5, or 7 more games that Boston, Tampa, Washington, Philly, Dallas, Vegas, Colorado, and St. Louis have played. Mm-hmm. And that seems like one of the biggest concerns for the players is getting back through training camp and how are we going to get back to game fitness, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's probably why it's done that way.
Daniel, where are you on this? Because I'm realizing me and Alex are doing a lot here. I want to hear
No problem. Yeah, I kind of agree that too. Like, I don't really know where these athletes are gonna be when it comes to like fitness and training camp. I remember, if I'm referencing back, like not a pandemic but a lockout where with the NBA, it took them quite a while in 2013 to really get back to playing condition, and I guess here they're just kind of using like that play-in and like that round robin style to kind of ease them in and just figure out like some kind of format. This is something that it's going to be debated, it's going to be changed around, but it's kind of something where it's here, let's just see how it goes, how it develops. I think Elliot Friedman said the same thing too. We don't know how everything is going to pan out with this if it's set in stone.
It's very much that it's safe to say, first of all, that this is a complete mess of a format. Like, let's be perfectly honest. Again, The bottom 2 teams here are the Blackhawks and the Habs. Like, talk about inconsistent. We're in a system right now that every single Central team is making the playoffs.
Yeah, it's very messy.
Yeah, and I was trying to find another tweet. Remind me before we go to talk to you guys about the Tampa Bay Lightning, because there's something very important I want to talk about there. Okay. And Ryan Kessler.
Yeah, I'm fine with them having this format this year.
Yeah.
I understand there's a situation going on that's bigger than hockey. How do we adapt to what's going on? Is it safe to play and things along those lines? Where are they going to play? I think the bigger issue of the playoff format, I think it was very easy for the league to say, okay, let's come up with the playoff format, because their fallback is, hey, we're going to do a 16-team playoff format.
Yeah, just do what we all
do. Instead of points, we'll do points percentage because not everyone's played the same amount of games. I think the biggest issue is how are they going to play, and testing along the lines of testing, and where are they going to play? That I think is a bigger issue for the league. I remember we talked about this less than a month ago. The issue was the draft. Like, that's what was being told. Like, we're like, okay, when are we going to do the draft? We still don't know when we're going to have a draft. Then it became, okay, let's deal with the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But they still have it. It feels like I don't know what the NHL is planning to do. Like, I've heard hub cities, I've heard Las Vegas. Like, it seems like other leagues, like, let's talk about the league they're competing with, essentially, and they're in a similar position, the NBA. It's like, I just read, let me pull up, it was from Adrian Woj. I'm so sorry. Do you know how to Woj? That's what we're calling him. Woj. Woj. I'm going to butcher his last name, and I feel awful. Now, that there's talks to resume the 1920 season, and he retweeted saying that they're in talks to play at Disney World, or whichever one. I don't know. World, Land. I don't know. right? So at least we know that's where they're playing, and that's where they're most likely playing. Like, we're talking about having 4 hub cities. Let's just be clear. I don't think there's going to be a Canadian hub city.
No.
That's probably because of Canada's 14-day quarantine.
Yeah, and whether, like, I'm perfectly fine saying, hey, we don't need to have a hub city. Not a big deal. That's the last of really my concerns, if Canada has a hub city or not. I know Toronto, Edmonton, and Vancouver were all really pushing to be a hub city, especially Edmonton and Vancouver.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think you need to figure out, like, I think you have two, if you can do this, you have 2 hub cities. One for the East, one for the West. When you get to the finals, that's a whole different situation. You have to pick one of the hub cities at that point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is first of all, I have 2 questions I want to ask. First of all, I want to read you this tweet from Radko. It's a paraphrase from Radko Gudas of him having some. This is from Twitter user @Habs Chronicle. Great follow, by the way. Radko Gudas with some pointed words for the NHL. Gudas says that the league doesn't want players going to the Olympics and risking injury, but is fine making them risk their lives by playing during the pandemic. The Caps D plays for a contender and is against resuming the season. First of all, Radko Gudas, there's a lot more to the Olympics rather than injury.
Well,
but
I think that's the biggest thing, though. I think that's probably the top thing on the list.
The question I want to ask from that is resuming the season and awarding the cup worth it?
Oh. If they can do it, they can do it. You look at this is what I'm doing right now. I'm looking at right now Bundesliga has started up. You know, there have been positive tests leading up to the start of play. Those players have been quarantined. When they test negative, they will be allowed to play. UFC, you're literally, I can't think of a more physical sport where you're up against someone than UFC.
Yeah.
They're testing everyone. They had 3 positive tests, 1 fighter, 2 cornermen in their first event 2 weeks ago. If you have a plan that says, we're gonna do this, this, and this. I'm not a scientist. I'm no expert on viruses. I don't know what that plan is. If there's a plan that says we can test everyone, keep people in the same vicinity, do multiple tests every other week, antibody tests, whatever they have to do, and they can come back, I don't see why they don't come back, because I think there's a lot of economics behind them not coming back that could be devastating for I don't know how many years.
Yeah, I feel the same way, where if it could be safely done, and they kind of use those examples of like what's been working for the other leagues, then something can happen, but it's kind of something where I don't want them to rush it. I don't want them to go, we need to have this done now. And it's also like, it is a lot of players in like 1 or 4 hub cities. It's good that you mentioned that, Daniel, because I quickly, while we were figuring this out, quickly Googled some stuff about the COVID testing in Canada. And I just see this CBC article saying from 19 hours ago, Ontario sees its highest new COVID-19 case rise in 2 weeks. And listen, there's going to be a second wave, right? Like this is not even a question. This is going to happen
in the fall.
So, yes, hell, there might even how confident are we that the government and the world really knows what they're dealing with this disease? I'm not 100% on it, but that's discussion for another day. But the biggest concern I would have is you're not just testing players, you're not just testing coaches,
right?
You're testing management, you're testing equipment staff, and this is just for 1 league. And you need to prioritize everyone else before athletes. As in, like, if you bring sporting back, it can't be just here's all these tests on the silver platter, because that more is just terrible.
Oh, for sure. But again, that's another thing. That's another thing along the lines of can they do it safely? Can they do it properly? Now, I think they're testing a lot more in the U.S. than they are in Canada. And
they have to.
I mean, yes, they have to. They have over 300 million people. We have 38 million people, right? So there's a difference. But if it can be done properly and safely, I don't see why you do. And the players are okay with it. It seemed like, we're shifting reasons why you don't want to play, right? We were talking about, they talked about a month ago, Philip Deneau, Brendan Gallagher were kind of talking about, hey, we don't want to not see our families for 3 months. That was kind of that was the idea there. Now Mitch Marner comes on and says, what happens if someone gets sick and dies? And Radko Gudas says, what did he say? There something about the Olympics and caring.
He was
about
upset that were upset about players getting hurt, even though that's not why they don't go to the Olympics. But they are okay with putting players in danger. Yeah. I think is, and then the last thing I want to ask you guys about all of this is, it's always a question people are going to ask. I'll start with you here, Daniel, because I know Alex might have a bit. I feel like me and Alex might have a back and forth here. Daniel, does this cup count?
Oh, interesting point, because okay, so I don't know. This just reminds me of something that Shaq said. I saw when he compared, when he compared with Tim Duncan, when it was a shortened season, but the Spurs won, and he said Tim Duncan on the Spurs had championships, but one has an asterisk beside it, meaning he only has 4 real championships. I don't know, but personally, I think it counts. Are we going to take away the 2013 Blackhawks Cup?
But that was a contender.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this. Did you guys watch my video?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Part of it.
Part of it? Okay.
I'll finish it soon.
Actually, wait, no, I'll get back to it. Okay, what about you? What about you, Alex?
Yes.
Does it count?
Okay. It count if Montreal and Chicago face in the final of the cup and Montreal wins, the cup counts.
Okay.
If Chicago wins, the cup doesn't count. No, I'm just... The cup counts. The cup counts.
Agree.
No, the cup counts. I think no matter what, even if Boston goes and wins it, there's going to be an asterisk. And, it was a different playoff format. There was a pandemic. But the cup is a cup, right?
Mm-hmm.
A cup is a cup. So, yes, it counts, but there's going to be an asterisk. And it's up to you to decide whether that asterisk is positive or negative. For me, I think, you know what? Or, it's a cup. You won the cup. If the Leafs win the cup, I'm not going to come here and tell you, yeah, they won the cup. But every other fan base will tell me that. Because,
they're going to do that.
Because they're absolute jerks. But
they're out to get us Leafs fans.
Yeah, of course they are.
Okay, so you have seen my video, so I think you guys know where I stand.
Mm-hmm.
I am of a very strong opinion that I think it depends on who wins. Because yes or no, if I told you guys that the St. Louis Blues are heavy Stanley Cup contenders, and if they won the cup if a pandemic doesn't happen, would you be surprised?
Like they go back to back?
Wait. Say that if they're...
If the pandemic doesn't happen and it's a normal playoffs and the St. Louis Blues go back to back, would you question it?
No, I wouldn't. But you can't do that. These are what if questions. These are what I would not be surprised, but these are what if questions. You can't ask a what if question though.
Alex, I'll let you explain your reasoning.
Okay, go. Okay, go. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes or no? if the Bruins won the cup in a normal circumstance, would you question it?
No.
No.
Now, what if it was Winnipeg, a team that could make the playoffs, and Connor Hellebuck gets hot and they have a great offense?
Would I question it? No.
Okay. Now, what if all of a sudden a team that had 2 8-game losing streaks and lost 4 times to Detroit won the Stanley Cup? And this is the team I cheer for.
No.
Would I be happy? The moment I see Price lift the cup, I'm going to be happy. But I'm going to not. First of all, I wouldn't love it as much because I also want, if the Habs are going to win a cup, I want people in the damn arena. I want people cheering, Carey, Carey. It doesn't feel the same to me if Montreal or Chicago won. But it's just, to me, if the Bruins or the Blues or Colorado won, I'd say, okay, I would believe that in normal circumstance they would.
But we're not in normal circumstances. That's why I'm saying, yes, this cup, no matter who wins, this cup is going to have an asterisk on it. That's right. For me, it's just, I don't know. It's hard to say, you only played 70 games in the regular season and the playoff format was different. But then you say, the year was 2020. We haven't done anything since March 13th in Ontario. Then you're like, okay, given the circumstances, that's fine. Like when an 8 seed, when we had 1-8, when an 8 seed won the cup, which I think happened a couple, right? LA was an 8 seed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was that surprising? Probably, because they're an 8 seed.
But the Kings had Kopitar, Doughty, Quick was actually good. And then they turned around when they got another fantastic top 6 forward in Jeff Carter. Right. And I mean, also, like, something I was just thinking about, man, isn't it hilarious that we love a sport where the parity is at a level in the league that a 24th place team, because of the goalie, has a chance to make a run?
I love it. I like that.
That's a separate issue.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that.
But yeah, it's incredible in an interesting way.
Same thing too. What happens if Elvis Merzlikins gets hot and then Pierre-Luc Dubois becomes the next Jonathan Toews of 2010?
Columbus literally, like, I think Justin Byrne put out the tweet. They were getting back a whole list of players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like even like Penguins fans, Crosby and Malkin are getting rest. How often do they get that? And also, Jake Gensel could be that much closer to coming back.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Flyers, Nolan Patrick could have some more time to recover because, obviously with headaches you never know, but so that's even more chance for them. All of a sudden now Ilya Mikheyev comes back from his wrist, injury and has even more time to recover. Morgan Riley and Cody Ceci weren't going to be 100%, and now they might be a lot closer to it, if not 100%.
So Morgan Riley played one game before the pandemic. He played the last game.
Did he? Okay.
Against Tampa Bay, and he looked pretty darn good. Cody Ceci, don't stop it. Stop it.
Cody Ceci.
Stop. I love the guy Cody Ceci, but the hockey player not so much. Before we finish the episode, and I think you guys know my answer to this question, but you're looking at this 2014 playoff. We just listed off the bracket. What is your favorite matchup?
Ooh. So, first of all, I'm going to ignore Montreal because I'm too biased.
If you want, pick Montreal.
Man, there's two for me because Pittsburgh is such a fun team and Montreal healthy are also a very fun team to watch. But if I have to choose a second one, it's obvious. It's easily Carolina and New York because Carolina are so fun, Svechnikov especially, and then the Rangers and Chemi Panarin are just so fun.
Mm-hmm. Daniel?
Oilers and Blackhawks. I don't know. It's a unique mix of like offensive guys where I don't know. I think we just talked about Patrick Kane, one of the best in the world, to go against Draisaitl and McDavid. And I don't know. It's like it's that type of series where you're gonna see a bunch of role players step up. So that's the fun thing about it. I love the underdog.
That's interesting because
about it.
Adam and I were talking about that series yesterday, and I said Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are going to wipe the floor with the Chicago Blackhawks.
It's like when Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews aren't on the ice, it's not good. At least the Oilers with guys like Atmasiu and Ennis have a bit more depth. And like somehow Neil isn't as good as he was, but he's like fourth liner on the Oilers. Ryan Carpenter is a fourth line winger for the Blackhawks. So it feels like it's a series that whenever the top guy's on the ice, it's probably going to be terrible to watch. But me and Alex agree that I think the Oilers take it no problem. But like Patrick Kane back in the playoffs is always
always fun.
Tape too.
Yeah. So mine is obviously the New York Rangers and Carolina Hurricanes. For some reason, I can't explain why, but I absolutely love Carolina.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you why.
I mean, like, they're fun.
Yeah. Okay, just quickly, their defense right now is, this is from Daily Faceoff, Joel Edmondson, Jacob Slavin, Hayden Fleury, Brady Shea, Jake Gardner, Trevor Van Riemsdyk. These are the three players they're probably going to get back when we come back. Dougie Hamilton, Sammy Vatanen, and Brett Pesce.
They're missing their best defenseman, and Sammy Vatanen, another top four defenseman, and they still have a better defense than most other teams. How silly is that?
That's
absolutely
crazy.
Silly.
I just want to bring up two more things before we end the show. First of all, Ryan Kessler needs to not have Twitter.
Why? What did he do?
I know. That's disgusting.
You know the My Players versus 2020 game that's been going on. So he put a picture of him like celebrating, and then he puts for the 2020 part. I don't exactly. It looks like it's his hip mid-surgery with this giant steel ball in it. And it is... I want to be careful here because I'd like to stay on Voice Ed because they've been so nice as to allow us on their platform. But it is... he shouldn't get Twitter anymore because that was disgusting. And second of all, yesterday there was a current bid. A lot of teams are doing fundraisers to do COVID stuff. Like the Habs have had a bunch. Now Tampa Bay have actually been offering... are doing a bidding for a tryout for a roster spot. The current bid, or last time I saw, was at 5:22 at 9 p.m., was at $19,000. Guys, if we pitch in...
Wow. All right.
Yeah, no. If we pitch in, no. Sorry.
I love that. Man, you just feed Stammer one-timers or something the whole time. Like, that'd be fun.
Yeah, it'd be very fun. It's just I don't want to pitch in $20,000.
Could you imagine if like Jonathan Drouin just won the bet and he's like, "Hey guys, do I get to play in the playoff format?"
Ooh.
Remember me? Well, I guess that's the end of the first episode.
Yeah.
A lot of good discussions today, I'd say, guys. If you enjoyed all this type of hockey content, wherever you're listening to this, let's say it's iTunes, Spotify, the YouTube channel especially, wherever you can, follow or subscribe or leave a comment, like, review, all this type of stuff. We want to know your thoughts on the 2014 playoffs and all this kind of stuff. The questions we asked, is it worth it? Does it count? We want to know your opinions as well. Our next episode will obviously be part 2 of this, where we look at this off-season's UFA and RFA class. Then our next episode of Bizarre Adventures, we'll begin looking at Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Also, Alex, what else should the listeners do?
They should go to our Instagram page. They should most definitely follow the Instagram page. Like all the posts. You know what? Leave a comment.
Everything.
Leave a comment. Throw a comment down there.
Get the comment section going. Let's go.
Exactly. And you know what? The YouTube page, Adam mentioned it. Check out the YouTube page because you can see everyone's beautiful face. And
oh, thank you.
We gotta get that going.
And yeah, we gotta get that going. Exactly.
Yeah. Daniel, anything to add to the outro bit?
This was fun. Remember to follow us. Thanks, guys.
My one last thing. I finally uploaded a new video to my channel.
Yes, I forgot to mention the video is up.
Yeah, I talk about Alex Romanov, Cam Hillis, Andre Markov's retirement, and the 2014 playoff format, and the Habs part of that especially. So be sure to check that out. And yeah, people, we need to get this channel's YouTube channel going, because that's where the fun's gonna be.
That's true. That's true.
Special effects.
Exactly.
Special effect. Woo, fire explosion. Like all the Air horn.